Hey, hello, and welcome. Thank you for tuning in for this month's Community Venue Learning Series. For those who are new here, these are our free monthly webinars which hope to assist, inspire, empower, and equip all those who work in community venues to do their work more effectively and efficiently, or just to learn new skills and get new ideas for your work. Or if you're someone who just happened to be scrolling through and found this month's topic really intriguing but don't work in community venues, then you are also welcome here. For those who are watching this recording after this live event, hello and welcome as well. I am Carmela and I organize these monthly webinars. And as well as I do marketing and head the social media for SpacetoCo. So just a little bit about SpacetoCo before we move on. Our mission in SpacetoCo is to help community venues be a thriving hub in their communities by being able to help and provide opportunities to be able to grow bookings, increase community engagement, as well as support. This is why we started this learning series, among other things. We also create and provide free resources to be able to do exactly that. We are also a two-sided marketplace where you can list your spaces, where guests can find them online and book your spaces. But it is also an efficient booking system tool where you can reduce your admin by 80%. We work with a number of local governments as well as community centers across New Zealand and Australia. So today's learning series is on creating intentional community programs. And this is quite an important topic that was highly requested because it's really essential for the work that each community venue does. It serves to engage the community to make it into a thriving hub that it can be. And that's why being intentional and thinking creatively about the programs each venue provides is really essential. However, we know that oftentimes thinking of what programs to run and when to run them and how to go about running them can be really overwhelming. But how do we change our way of thinking on what programs we should provide and design for our community? How do we also enable and utilize our local services and organizations to really serve these specific communities in our own environment? So for today's session, I am so excited because we actually have two great speakers from our very own community venues. We're hoping to hear and learn all about this and more from them. They will share about their own experiences of running community programs, what they do, and hopefully some tips and tricks to help navigate managing them. So without further ado, we'll move along. So this is our agenda for today. So we've done the introduction. I will pass it on to Shauna next for a quick icebreaker. And then we will hear from Sean from the Willagee Community Centre. And then after that from Julianne from the Vic Park Community Centre. And if you haven't had questions along the way, you can ask them afterwards and then we'll wrap up. This should all be done within an hour so that you guys can get on with running these community programs in your own venues. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Shauna for the icebreaker.
Hi everyone, my name is Shana and I'm also part of the marketing team at SpacetoCo. I work with Carmela and really happy to have you. Welcome to everybody here. So for our icebreaker, we just want to see who's on the call today. So if you see on your screen, there's a chat button at the bottom right corner. If you click that button, let us know your name, where you're working, community venue, and how do you find or think of new ways to create community programs? If you haven't done this before, do you have any questions already that you've been that you're thinking about in terms of this topic that might be good for Sean and Julianne to have a look at? Hi, Sean, from the Willagee Community Centre. That's good. And we want to say hello to everybody who's watching, who can't be here today, but who has the recording. Bridget from the Development at Work Australia. She runs community job seeker wellbeing and digital literacy programs. That's awesome. How did you think about that program in general, Bridget? Like, was that something that was a need in your community? Julianne Mackay, Centre Manager from the Victoria Park Community Centre. I think nonstop about new ways to program. How do you think about those new ways? How do you even ideate that kind of stuff? Bridget, probably the job seeker stuff. Was that something in your community that you saw was a need? Emma from Willagee as well. A lot of the time, community members give us ideas. That's right, cool, of what they'd like to get involved with in the center. That's awesome that it's community centered. Bridget is typing as we speak. It's such a cool thing to see these community venues just engage with the community, and it's quite cool to see as well what different programs come out of that, and that each community is different. Bridget said you propose it to federal government and got funding. Awesome. It's called Next Steps and helped over 500 job seekers aged 49 plus, which is such a it is such a need for people looking jobs. They're 49 and over. Awesome. Bridget is still typing. If you're still on the chat, I would love to see who you are. Hi, Amanda from Birkdale Beach Haven Community Project. Amanda consults with community groups and looks at our offerings from a holistic point of view. Te Whare Tapawha, awesome. Māori holistic model of health, try and meet community needs, awesome. And Bridget is trying to go again with less age restrictions soon as well. Awesome. Well, hello everybody. We hope you enjoy this session. And I'll pass it on back to Carmela to move on with the session.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Shauna. And for those of you who are jumping in, feel free to just keep introducing yourself and use up the chat. If you guys have any questions for our speaker at any point while they're speaking, feel free to send it in the chat, and then we'll facilitate and moderate it for you guys. So now we'll head on to our first speaker, who is Sian Brown. So Sian is the community center supervisor at the Willagee Community Centre in the city of Melville. She is a talented and creative community cultural development manager who is committed to connecting and empowering communities and work strategically to provide the best outcomes. Sian has coordinated community initiatives, festivals, exhibitions, and for more than 20 years in a not-for-profit art organization and local government. She also has experience in community consultation, managing art collections, securing sponsorships and funding, and working with diverse communities with cultural sensitivity. So Sian is like the best of the best, and that's why we got her. We got the experts in this call, and we're really looking forward to what we'll gain from her experiences. So Sian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and it's lovely to be here. Hello, everybody. This is fun, isn't it? Here we are all together online in different places in the world even. So I guess I better start off. The City of Melville acknowledges the Bibbulmun people as the traditional owners of the land on which the city stands today, and we pay our respects to the Whadjuk people and elders, both past, present and emerging. Yes, so it's an interesting thing for me to think about and clarify and talk to today. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity. As you were saying, I've worked in the arts and different not-for-profits prior to working here in the community centre. So it's been really interesting for me to work out how best to program in this location in Willagee. So Willagee is part of the City of Melville. We have a really diverse range of people in the community. We have a lot of First Nations families, and we also have, sort of a diversity. It's quite close to Fremantle, so some of the housing is been quickly rising in price. So there's a real diversity there of socioeconomic factors as well. So I guess I'll just start off by talking about the three main ways that we program at the community centre. So one of these ways is looking after the volunteers and recruiting the volunteers who run our special interest groups. So at the Willagee Community Centre, we have, I think, 9 or 10 regular weekly or fortnightly community groups that are run by our amazing volunteers. And this provides a really nice, welcoming, relaxed environment for people who are just looking to connect with other people. So they might wander into the centre and look a bit lost, and, you know, we say, oh, can we help you? And they might say, oh, I'm not quite sure what I'm wanting to do, but we can see that they're wanting to connect. And so, you know, often I'll pick up our newsletter and I'll point out these groups. So we have an art group, a patchwork group, a sewing group, a writing group, a Tai Chi group, a walking group, and we're about to look at a table tennis group. So our volunteers welcome people in, and you know, they may continue to meet with this group every week for the rest of their lives, or they might just sort of pop in and out of the group. So it's a really lovely way to have programming in the centre, which is volunteer-led, which is super low cost. We charge $4 and provide, you know, tea and coffee and basic supplies. So we provide the sewing machines for the sewing group and the basic supplies for the art group, and different training and support and acknowledgement events for the volunteers. So yeah, that's a really beautiful way that we provide programming here in the centre. And it also means that really it's the community running it and sort of working together, and we're building the capacity of the volunteers to do that. So sometimes we'll identify gaps and we will advertise for a volunteer to run that group. Or sometimes people come into the centre and they say, hey, I really want to volunteer and share my skills to the community. How can I do that with you? And then we'll go through an interview process, because it's really important when you're recruiting volunteers to obviously see if they're going to fit in with the way that you need to work, you know, within a local government or a community centre, and make sure that we're the right fit for them. So, for example, Pat Richardson, who runs our Tai Chi group, she's been running that for over 15 years. And some of those people in that group have been coming for all of that time. And it's a weekly group on a Thursday. So you can just imagine the richness that brings to people's lives. They often go off afterwards and, you know, they're doing things together in a social capacity. And also John, who runs the art group, he has always dreamed of running an art school, and he actually volunteers twice a week for several hours, running, you know, the art group on a Monday and a Thursday. And he's always dreamed of running an art school, so this is fulfilling his dream of doing that. Yeah, so that's one of the ways that we program here at the community centre, and I'm just so grateful and impressed by our volunteers, because they're wonderful and they're open to continually learning, you know, learning the new terminology, learning how to understand the different diversity and the people that might be walking through the door, so they can be truly welcoming. Another way that we program is actually by supporting local businesses to, you know, start to look at maybe hiring the centre. So they may not be sure if their business is going to thrive, you know, if they start hiring the centre. And if it's something that we've been looking to get into the centre, then we might work with them in this business incubator model. So, for example, we had a lady who was running chair yoga, and we approached her and, you know, said, if you would like to trial running this for 2 months in the community centre, we can pay you a set fee. We will advertise and charge for the workshops. So you're going to be really recruiting people who are happy to be paying to do chair yoga. We will take that income and just pay her a set amount for 2 months. And then after that time, she may or may not choose to continue running it if she's, you know, getting enough people to then, you know, be a thriving business. So in that way, and then she would go on to hire the space, pay for the hire of the space, and liaise directly with the people, you know, the attendees, so they would pay her directly. But in that way, it kind of helps to see if something's going to work in the community space for the business, and whether or not they want to continue, you know, running chair yoga. And we also obviously help market, you know, that for them, etc. And so, yeah, we still have that chair yoga running here, which is great. So that's one of the ways that we program. And obviously, another way we program is contracting our own facilitators to run sessions. So it's interesting how we do this. We have school holiday programs and, you know, sing for fun sessions. And so often we'll be looking at fun sessions that are a way to connect people, offer something creative and innovative. Maybe they will get inspired and take that back into their life as a new creative thing to be doing. Another way that we program is sort of educational skill development sessions that will then build the capacity of the community to you know, thrive in their life. So recently we had a career resume building session, particularly aimed at parents that were rejoining the workforce, which was a really big success, and the facilitator was fabulous. We also run, you know, LGBTQI, I guess, you know, skill development. So, you know, how to understand the experience of LGBTQI community. We've also run, you know, workshops around domestic violence and how to be an everyday responder, how to support your friends and family and community in that area. So I guess in this way, we're sort of building the skills of the community. And, you know, that's some of the programming that we do ourselves. We also run training for our community groups in general. So town teams, you know, community gardens, your Rotary, etc. And I guess this is all around community capacity building as well. So we will be running programming in, you know, Canva, so how they can develop their own graphic design skills. We've done training with them on filming on their phone, which is another great way that they can promote their groups and recruit new members. How to use webinars. That was the hot trend when COVID first emerged. So we were helping them connect with their groups and their communities through webinars. And then recently we've done training in governance, which is really helpful for groups that are wanting to just have healthy governance structures and understand their responsibilities. Yeah, so I guess obviously you can't talk about programming without talking about community consultation. So it's really interesting the way we, you know, consult and have that conversation with our community and our user groups. And when I first arrived in this role, you know, it was sort of time for us to do a bit of a community consultation. So we created, you know, your classic postcards with a few basic questions on them. You know, one of them was, when have you felt the most connected to your community? Do you have any skills that you'd like to share with your community? And, you know, what sort of things would you like to see happening in the community centre? What would you come and do in the community centre? And so we had that postcard, you know, and obviously people could win, you know, go in the running to win a $50 voucher, that old chestnut. So if they submitted a postcard, you know, there was a bit of a carrot enticing them for that. And I guess we had that in the centre, so people were filling in the postcard, but I also decided to do a bit of a pop-up event, movie event, so that we could really try to engage people that maybe weren't coming to the centre. So we had a movie night where we, you know, had a few activities leading up to that. And we also just were roaming around doing interviews with you know, filming people's responses. So if they didn't want to be filling in a postcard, we could still capture their comments. And I guess then, you know, we ran a movie night the next year, and we, you know, actually put up on the screen some of those responses, you know, the percentage of things that people wanted to do, and also letting them know what we had run in response to that. And, you know, say, I don't know, 68% wanted creative artistic programs. We've run these certain sessions, you know, ukulele lessons, etc., artist talks. But did you know we also have an ongoing art group? So it was a way of feeding back to the community, but also letting them know what we already had that met that need that they may not have known about. It's really interesting. We quite often get, you know, people coming into the centre asking if we have certain things. You know, do you have computer classes? and or just random things like, do you guys do line dancing? Which is something we would never think we would have programmed. And so it's really nice to put your ego aside and see what people want to do. And there were quite a few people that were like, do you guys do line dancing? So we have now, liaised with a lady who runs line dancing, and she's hiring the space and offering line dancing in the building, which is great. So it's interesting just letting that conversation come up when people come in and ask for certain things, and we'll make note of it. And then, if people are interested in things we're not yet running, we will start to collect their contact details so we can then see if there's enough of an interest. Then we'll try to find a way to do that, whether we're paying the facilitator or getting someone in to hire the space. Obviously, there's other things that come around via emails, and maybe people, meeting with you to let you know, look, I've got all this funding. I'm running these fabulous cooking and nutrition classes. So I think, so for example, I've kind of done my programming for the year, but often these things come around and they're just too good to not slot into your programming. So I noticed that it's good to keep your ear to the ground, and when these things come up that other people have got funding for, it's such a great opportunity to get them into the centre as well. Obviously, we try to survey our community groups as well throughout the year, see what they're interested in. We often identify gaps in our programming. For example, when I first started working here, I noticed that we weren't particularly programming anything for First Nations people. So I, teamed up with one of our arts staff here at the centre, and we're now running an Aboriginal art group that is just for Aboriginal artists. And it's really nice to team up with the arts staff, because that means that people that are regularly coming onto this group, she's actually supporting those Aboriginal artists with covering framing costs and getting them into the art awards, and we're doing different sort of events with them. And they're also in the open studios that's coming up soon, which is a tour of the studios in the city of Melville. So it's really nice that partnering with different people. We also find that we try to stay in touch with other people in the city of Melville that are doing beautiful programming themselves, people in the library, the art team, the youth team. And so we try to see if something is fabulous that happened for 20 kids over the other side of the city, that we might, keep that in mind for running here at the end of the year, or, partnering with them to cross-promote, etc. Has worked really well. Let's see. So some hot tips, they might seem really obvious to people, but yeah, I guess I can talk about some hot tips. I'm a big fan of being super organised and booking things way in advance. So say if you did a fabulous cooking and nutrition class that has got funding for the next 3 years, I mean, how great. So I try and book them in for the next year, at the end of that course. And then I knew it was coming up, and I knew that we could plan to, design a poster, in time to do that. And also we could promote it as we went to different people. So I think planning in advance is fabulous. But then I think the hot tip is that you don't want to market it too early. Because if you're getting registrations for people in January for something in June, by the time you get back to them in June, they're like, what? Oh yeah, I was really interested in that in January, but not so much now. So plan in advance, but market, maybe 5 weeks in advance. So obviously we create our posters on Canva. We have our information in our hard copy newsletter, because a lot of the people that come to the centre are seniors, and hard copy newsletters work really beautifully for that cohort. We obviously have an e-newsletter that we email out, all the classics, and then we use social media, etc., and cross-promoting with other departments in the city. Any other hot tips? I think as well, something that our team does beautifully is trying to align programming with certain times of the year that are bringing awareness to different areas. So, if it's White Ribbon Day, which I think is now a week, we will try to run some fabulous training in domestic violence and how to be supportive of your community and friends around domestic violence. And obviously Reconciliation Week is coming up, so we've got a beautiful singing and Noongar workshop coming up and a breakfast streaming the talks that are online. So lining up with special times in the year. And yeah, then you're able to cross-promote with the other things that are happening in that time. Let's see, also registrations. It's really beautiful in community centres. So often I'll use Eventbrite if it's a big, pop-up event that's happening in the community that we're organising outside of the community centre, and that way, we can see that there's a couple of thousand people coming, and that's great for Eventbrite. We can then use Eventbrite to email them before the session and say, oh, it looks like it might be, rainy or windy, bring a jacket, or, this is where parking is, etc. But often for programs that we're running in the centre, we will literally go very old school and take their name and number and email, and we like to give them reminder calls, which a lot of people really love, and it helps keep that really close feeling, I think, for our programs. And it helps remind people that they're on. I think people get so many emails these days that actually getting a phone call is really lovely, especially because our cohort is quite senior. Another way we program in the centre is obviously supporting other teams within the City of Melville to do the fabulous work that they're doing. So we have a First Nations team at the City of Melville, and they run a youth drop-in program here every afternoon of the work week, so Monday to Friday. And so, part of our job is to just help that crew do their job beautifully. So just seeing, what they need from us, in terms of, cooking utensils or supporting them in different ways. And that goes for other community groups in the area if they're wanting to hire or use the space, just being really helpful. And also other staff in the city that are using the space for different programs, just trying to see how we can be helpful, but also letting them know how to set up the room and where the fridge is so they can be doing that next time. So yeah, in a nutshell, we work with a community capacity building model rather than a service delivery model. So we focus on building the capacity of our volunteers that are leading regular groups, and business incubators to help people see if their business is going to thrive here. And also we contract facilitators that are going to be building the capacity of, community leaders and community groups, as well as obviously hearing what people want to do and offering them that throughout the year. So I think I could keep rambling, but I feel like I've said most of what I was going to say.
No, that's huge, Sean. Thank you so much. It's so awesome to hear. You keep forgetting that when community programming is a topic, that there's so many things that cross over, like you've mentioned, like placemaking and volunteer care and stuff like that. And it's really cool to hear from you. We actually have a couple of questions from the chat for you from Amanda. So she asks, how do you fund PLD or training for your volunteers if they are running free or very low cost groups?
Oh, is PLD
public person? And
yeah, do you reckon PLD is public liability something? Amanda is typing. Real time. Professional learning and development. Yeah, how do we fund it? Yes. So we are a local government. So we have funding to, pay for our programming and support our volunteers. We also receive funding, Empowering Communities funding from Department of Communities for programming. So we would be using, allocated funds to pay for learning and development. We also have a full-time staff member who is a job share, so 2 staff members who are part of the volunteer Melville team. So sometimes they will also be offering sessions. Yeah, so we've got a training coming up on managing difficult personalities for our volunteers, because this is, such a human issue that comes up when you're running weekly ongoing groups, just the diversity in our personalities and how that plays out as a tricky dynamic in a group. So that's our next training with our volunteers, is managing difficult personalities. Let's see, for your volunteers, if they're very low cost groups. Yes, I see what you're saying. So I guess for us, so they're low cost, and that pays for, in our mind, that's paying for the tea and coffee, and also, I guess, the use of the room. And, we're managing advertising the groups and also administering, taking registrations, etc. But we have funds put aside to, develop our volunteers. Yeah, so I think that's answered that question.
That's awesome. I don't know if Emma might be working with you, because Amanda's second question was, what kind of activities do they do in the youth drop-in afternoons that you've mentioned, and what age groups is this targeting? Emma did answer. They're generally 9 to 17. They do a lot of sports, particularly basketball, and also learning cooking skills.
Yeah, so they have youth engagement officers that are just amazing. So, it's often this cooking school that's happening, as well as kids playing, basketball in the hall. And it's very impressive. So they'll be, cooking something with some of the kids, and then that'll be put in the oven. And then meanwhile, there'll be some cool sports activity happening in the hall. They also contract different people to come in and do workshops with the kids. So they've got a Hurt Locker boxing series coming up, which should be really fun. They've also done, different, it's mostly really active. So exactly what Emma has said there. But sometimes they also do cultural activities. So there's art that they do, as well as cooking with bush tucker. So they get in different contractors to do some more specific skill development.
Awesome. These are awesome questions, guys. If you have any more as we go, feel free to ask them for either of our speakers. But thank you so much, Sean, for that awesome, your experiences and just everything that you guys do there in the community center. I think for me, my favorite thing that I've taken from yours is when you said letting a conversation happen in terms of the ideas, because the community engagement is so important, and it's almost as though you're collaborating with the community for what to provide for them. But oftentimes I feel like when people in their own titles and jobs think all the ideas need to come from me and I need to provide the community, and actually we just need to think smarter, not harder, and letting the community tell us what they want and then just providing what we can for them. So thank you so much for that. We will move on to our next speaker, who is Julianne Mackay. She is from the Victoria Park Community Centre. Julianne is the manager there, where she curates a diverse range of public programs, working with vulnerable community groups and many different stakeholders. She is also a co-director in an arts program that works with Aboriginal girls in Perth high schools, and she also creates educational resources for visiting school groups. I'm pretty sure that Julianne has lots to share with us, especially in the management side of curating community programs. So a warm welcome to Julianne. So if I can invite Julianne to share her, there she goes.
Hello, welcome. Thank you very much for having me. I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we are located, which is the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We pay our respects ongoing to their culture and the contributions that they make, and are very privileged to also work with a number of Aboriginal groups at the community centre, which definitely enriches our world. I'm going to talk a little bit to some slides because it just makes it a little bit easier for me, and I'm also pretty impressed and proud of our new branding that you can see there. So we worked with a local designer to bring our 30-year-old centre into the 21st century. It's our 30th birthday this year. So the three of us at the centre, we're all part-time. We're all a big fan of colour, and we all don't work inside the box. So we needed some branding that represented that. So thank you. Could you just move on for me, Carmela? Is that okay? Thank you. So yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit of context about our organisation, because I think that lends itself to what you program, how you program, and why you program. So our centre, as I said, there's three of us part-time. Two of us, myself and Kerry, both have extensive experience across the arts. So we always bring art into what we do. Everything has a creative, unique slant that will lend itself to art in some way. I've also worked across social impact. I'm a curator by profession, so I have a museum and visual arts background, and have been involved in public programming in that sector for a long time. So the skills, they all mesh. They can all be brought into different organisations in different roles. Our income is directly reinvested into everything that we do at the centre. So I could see a lot of crossovers with what Sian was saying, but I also can see quite a few differences in what we do, and that's a good thing. We do have volunteers at the centre. Our play group is volunteer led, and the coordinators there are amazing. But I am a very, very big fan of people being remunerated properly for their time and their skills and their effort. And whilst we do have volunteers at the centre, and we are often asked by people to volunteer at the centre, where possible, I will always endeavour to pay people for their time and their skills. It's just a thing for me. I feel like poor arts workers from where I came from, it's a crossover from that. So all of the kind of decisions that we make are asset-based, so the ABCD principles, where the focus is put on the nurturing of the who and what we already have, so we can work with that to leverage. I think leverage is super important when you have no money, that you utilise what's around you, whether that be people, resources, different organisations, different stakeholders. They're right there on your doorstep. You just need to find them and work with them. Our programs are very intentional in that we try very hard to work with locals in the town of Vic Park. But having said that, anyone can come to the centre. Everybody's welcome. Not everybody that we work with is a Vic Park local, but where possible, we try and do that. So that's just a little bit of background about the centre. Also, there was a slide that just talked about the steps that we go through, Carmela, about how we program and why we program. I think that might be the next one. Is that there? Yeah. So that one. Yep. So that's just a little bit of information around I guess how we come up with and what we sort of try and work to at the centre. So we work to first of all sort of define the values and goals of the program. With the centre, I should also clarify that we receive funding from the Department of Communities, and we also receive funding from the town of Victoria Park. So there are certain things that we need to align to that are requirements of theirs. But wherever I can, I pull and twist those boundaries and manipulate them to work for us. But it's just a thing that we have to be aware of when we are programming. Also key is identifying the target audience. So when I came on board to the centre, which is about 2.5 years ago now, I was really fortunate in that my board don't see our centre as just a place for hire. They really wanted to have that as a secondary thing. We realise it's important in terms of revenue, but they really wanted it to be a community hub, a place where people could connect and thrive and come in and build ideas and, you know, develop programs. So I was sort of given free rein to be able to do that. So our target audience is super broad. We have baby programs, and we have all the way to intergenerational and seniors programs. And then, of course, we will work hard to program specific events throughout the year, say for Youth Week or NAIDOC Week, and then you may have a more defined target audience that we work to. A plan for community governance. So what I mean by that is having your community involved and how that might look. So it's really key to work, as I said before, with the assets that are around you and the people that are in your community. And to be honest, I've been there 2.5 years. That probably took me 18 months or more to build those kind of inroads. I'm not a Vic Park local, so I didn't have connection to the place, and that just takes time to build, and you just have to be patient with that. Sometimes I'm not patient, so that for me was quite challenging at times, because I'm a person that is highly organised and likes things done pretty quickly and pretty routinely, but relationship building takes a lot longer than that, so you just need to be patient. Obviously the financial structure and the space that you work in is critical, and so we don't receive any funding at all to develop programs. We have core funding to keep bums on seats for our staff, and minimal funding for anything else. So in the time that I've been at the centre, I've probably raked into the tune of $200,000 worth of grant money to be able to program what we program. And that takes a lot of time, but I like it. I like writing grants. It gives me the flexibility to be able to run the programs that I want. Can sometimes make it a little bit hard to pre-plan because you're not guaranteed the money, but we're pretty good at getting just about everything we ask for. So that's been able to develop a lot of programs for us. Obviously, attracting the right participants to your program is key, which is done through your different marketing channels. So we have a really heavy online presence, social media presence, e-newsers, all of the traditional things. We don't produce a hard copy newsletter, but we do produce a hard copy What's On brochure, which is in one of the slides somewhere. We'll have a look at in a minute, that we produce quarterly. And I have to stress the importance of monitoring, adjusting and evaluating whatever you do. We've had to do that with numerous programs that we've launched where things might not go to plan. You just have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to think outside the square. And in a lot of times you have to be able to think quickly. A really good example of that recently for us is we were working with a women's refuge, domestic violence refuge, on a program in Vic Park, and they closed. They needed to merge with somewhere else, and we had to shift the whole program to Midland, which is, for those that don't know, Perth is not town of Vic Park, and jumping sort of through the hoops there of having to redefine the way that the grant would look, because we weren't delivering services in our area anymore, but it was still critical that these people got supported. So it's just being able to ask for help and use the resources that are there to be able to do that. So if you don't mind moving on for me, that would be amazing. Thank you. Oh, there's just a little make yourself at home, just so you can sort of see our space. That's our one of our play groups that runs. Next one. Yeah, so in terms of what the centre does, we really encourage people to attend our events, join the playgroup, hire our space, but more importantly, to start an idea. So our best ideas have come from people just walking into the centre sometimes and saying, hey, we need a space. So that's the one thing that we can offer. We can offer a space. So we can offer reduced hire rates. We can offer the space for free, which we do for some of our really popular programs. We work with an organisation called Activate Mental Health, who have been hosting a monthly board nights game, board games night at the centre for several years now, and that's just grown in size. They also run TED Talks on a Saturday afternoon, and they also facilitate an LGBTQIA+ catch-up on a Sunday afternoon, and that all came from one volunteer who built this Activate Mental Health and now uses our space for multiple activities, and he's also now on our board and up for Volunteer of the Year. So that just came from a conversation one day. So the best ideas for that, I will say sometimes that's hard though, when you're
you're short-staffed and there's only 3 of you part-time and people are coming in all the time, but it's a nice distraction most of the time to be able to have those ideas presented to you that you can then build on. So yeah, could you move on for me, Carmela, please? Yeah. Okay. So this just gives you a little bit of an idea of what we do. So some of our programs that we've created. So our cultural dinners, which is the next slide. That's perfect. You can move on. Our cultural dinners is a bi-monthly dinner that we host at the centre in partnership with Victoria Park Centre for the Arts, who are our neighbours. So this has come about after two years almost of discussions of us wanting to do something where the town of Victoria Park used to run a program several years ago, long before my time, that was a little bit loosely like the one that we do. And apparently it was incredibly popular, but it just fell over. So we decided that we would reinvent it. This is another example of working with the people that you already have in your space. So our cultural dinners involve a member of the community. In our case, the four out of the 6 dinners that we've already had are people that regularly use our centre for something else that then wanted to showcase their culture and their cuisine. So what they do is we give them a budget for food and entertainment and whatnot, and they come in and they cook. They do a live cooking demonstration. People get to eat at the centre. We've had Thai, we've had Somali, we've had Nigerian, we've had French. They keep growing from strength to strength. They started at 20, now we've raised it to 50, and they sell out before we even have time to list them. So everything is just reinvested back into the program. So the Victoria Park Arts Centre had some money. We had the space. It's another example of how that can work with what you've got basically. So they're super popular, and they really are quite joyful. They're one of my. I'm very proud of them. We all work on it. Kerry videos it. We've got lots of photos and videos on our website and on our social media where you can see what we've done before. They're just super popular. So it's $15. It's $15 is what we charge. There's the question on the slide. The info's on the slide as well. They're great. So that's an example of one of our programs. Do you mind moving on for me? Okay. Yeah. So we've done several. Worked a lot with Aboriginal people. Our latest program is with Dylan Collard. He's a primary school teacher. Anyone in Perth that has the privilege of working with him should do so. He's an absolute joy. He speaks fluent Noongar, and he comes and teaches kids after school. The beauty of this program is there is quite a lot of Aboriginal kids in the town of Vic Park, in Vic Park schools that come to this, but there's also kids that come further afield. So that's quite lovely. And the feedback has been amazing. Parents saying, this should be in schools. Aboriginal kids learning their language it doesn't get any more special than that. So this just came about from, we had an International Women's Day event, and Ronnie Forrest, who's one of our local elders, I was talking to her, and this was a year ago, and she's going to do one of our cultural dinners as well. So there's another segue. She's going to do one for NAIDOC week, but Dylan is her son-in-law, and she just said, I'll just make Dylan do it. So that's sort of how that came about, and we've got a grant to pay for that as well. So and we will keep building on that. We're going to present a Science Week event where Dylan's going to talk to our first scientists, the First Nations people, and all of their inventions and things. So it's just about us really building on. I'm a fan of a long-standing friendship, relationship. I prefer that over a one-off event. One-off events have their place. They absolutely do. But I think if you can build longevity and sustainable relationships with people, it's just good for everybody. It's good for the people that are facilitating. It's good for us at the centre, and it's good for the participants to have a little bit of familiarity sometimes around, oh, yeah, we've done that with Dylan before. We know he's good. We'll come back. You know, this program, for example, is free because we got the grant, but we are running it again and we will charge next time because we know that it's sort of been a bit of the pilot program and we know that people like it. So they're going to be more prepared to pay to attend next time. So, yeah. Next one, Carmela, if that's okay. So this is just an example of things that we're doing during school holidays. So this is actually working with an OT. This program was specifically arranged and created for neurodiverse kids. So it's been really, really popular, and we will do that again. And this lady that's hosting this event came to a cultural dinner and asked me if she could come and do that here. So can you see where I'm going with all of this? It's just the more you do, the more you are going to be able to do again. Does that make you just keep building on these things? So that's that one. So I'll talk about just a couple more. Oh, that's another one that she's also doing, a Minecraft and social skills again for the neurodiverse kids. We've just done a whole heap of events for the Town of Victoria Park art season, had 10 days worth of workshops that we programmed using local artists to come in and hold workshops. So we at the centre do a mix of like hiring like facilitators, but we also do a lot of programs ourselves because then that's profit when we're running them, like because Kerry and I are both art teachers. And I think building on the skills of your staff is great too. Kerry's also a videographer, filmmaker, and an animation person. So we've got the youth realm covered there. And that's just meant that we've been able to make some money and reinvest that back into things rather than paying for a facilitator to come in and do it. So that's that. What else can I tell you? There's a little bit about our art season that I just said. So throughout the year, we would probably program, I don't know, at least 15 to 20 events ourselves that are over and above what our regular hirers come in and do, if that makes sense. So we work, I touched on it before, we program a lot of that at least a year in advance, and I program around key dates. So I'll program around NAIDOC week, I'll program around Science Week, I'll program around Youth Week, I'll program around Seniors Week, because then you also know that there's going to be grants available for those things. There'll be local government grants, there'll be state grants, there'll be federal grants, and you can plan in advance your time around applying for those grants. You know that Seniors Week is in November. You come up with an idea, you write your grant, you're good to go. So that's how we work. But having said that as well, I'm always up for last minute pivoting and slotting things in and going, oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's do it. Probably to the dismay sometimes of my staff who say, Jules, can we just pull up for a bit? I do have that off button. It's just not there very often. So it's just easy to get excited in this sort of realm. So these are just some other things. We don't need to go through all the slides. I just put some bits and pieces up. These are like our weekly programs. We offer services for the homeless. We do play group twice a week. We have a lot of maths programs for kids, a lot of music programs for both kids and adults. We work a lot with Narcotics Anonymous and St Mary's Outreach to provide a lot for the disadvantaged in our community. And we've also built other programs off that. We worked with St Mary's Outreach on an art initiative. And this was just all coming out of conversations one night. I just hung around for one of their sessions and said, how else can we do things? And that's how it came about. So, I think I've probably talked enough about things. I just think that that's our impact statement. Always good to document your journey, and always good to blow your own trumpet when you're doing really good things. So I think sometimes we're not very good at that, me included, to be honest with you. But shout it from the rooftops when you're doing amazing work, because you'll gain traction, and it's about advocacy, and it's about being able to for me, the whole sector is about, you know, shouting from the rooftops just how much community people do with nothing, really, to be honest. So we can run on the smell of an oily rag and come up with some amazing things. So onwards and upwards, I say, and we just have to keep plugging away. So thanks, Emma. It is quite a nice range of programs, and Sian, and funds that we provide are a bit. I don't know if I'm going to disclose that. Enough to cover. People are paid for their time. They're paid for all of their ingredients. They're also paid a travel allowance, and it's enough to basically feed 50 people plus their fee plus whatever. So it's a bit. We actually just received a very, very big grant to keep it going, and that's why I'm not disclosing, because we're going to give people more money, if that makes sense. So yeah, watch this space. Yeah.
Man, like, what a thriving hub Vic Park Community Centre is, just from what you've shared. Thank you so much, Julianne. I think even when you started off with saying like you guys had to rebrand and make something colorful, like, first of all, your branding is 10 out of 10. And I think that was a way of what you said, monitoring, evaluating, and adjusting something that was old, because you have to make it something new. Very
Yes.
similar to what you said about the cultural dinners. You know, you were just, it's happened in the past, but you're just reinventing it.
Yeah.
And I feel like all of them were in C's. The things that I really loved hearing from you was the conversations that were happening, and you were just allowing conversation to happen. And the last bit that you said, which was about, you know, confidence in your programs and in yourself. If you're somebody who is in the position that you're in, like, it's easy to doubt yourself, because you're like, oh, what if people don't come? What if this was not like, it wasn't received well? It doesn't matter, because you provided it. And that's why it's awesome that you said you have time to evaluate it, adjust it. If you feel like it didn't work well, okay, how can you change it or improve it? Or maybe it doesn't work well in the age that we're in anymore. But
You've just got to give it. You've just got to give it. I was petrified with that cultural dinners. That's why we only set it at 20 participants, because, and I also thought that we would get nobody that would want to be the person, you know, the facilitator. It's programmed until the middle of next year. I get emails every week saying, "Can I come in and do?" So you've just got to dip your feet in the water, I think. And you know what? We've had some duds. I'm not going to say we haven't, but we've just learnt from them. And you know what? I haven't even shelved some of those ones that haven't worked how I had anticipated. I'll just find the time to remold them, rethink them, and just rejig, you know, the way that it could work. And it's just constantly being open to learning, you know, just sucking up that knowledge of how you can be better and do better.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you once again, Julianne. That was amazing. Like, learned so much. So we're coming to the end of our session. I don't think anybody else has questions, but if you do, feel free to throw it in the chat. But before we end the session, we just wanted to invite everyone to join the Community Venues Facebook group page. So this is essentially like SpacetoCo started it, but it is not all owned by us or anything. We just realized that there should be a community page for people who work or volunteer or any way involved in a community center. So this is a place where we can start conversations. You can share the things that are happening in your community venues. If you need support or seeking inspiration, you can ask the community there, because these are your people. Afterwards, we will send you an email to how to access this immediately, so you don't need to memorize this how-to. And for next month's community venue learning series, it will be on Wednesday, the 24th of May. And it will be all about volunteer care, which is awesome that we actually like spoke about it here. It's about how to recruit, retain, and look after them. So yeah, thank you so much again to Sian and to Julianne for sharing their extensive knowledge and experiences. I'm pretty sure I am not the only one who is leaving here so inspired to know that, like, you know, we have community venues that are thriving hubs, and we know that your venues as well can be the same. We will share Sian and Vic's and Julianne's contacts to you guys if you feel like you want to have a further conversation with them of how to do things, as well as their organization links and Julianne's presentation for today. So we hope to see you guys in the next one, and thank you again for tuning in and coming. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Carmela.
Thank you.
See you later.